Resumes and cover letters or cover messages are a fun topic. Here's an extra plug for the WCC Writing Lab if you want to go there or get feedback from people besides me, which is actually important in regards to this topic. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily start another workshop with this slide. Is the presenter trustworthy? But because job searching is such a kind of fast-paced, fast-changing thing, and because as you get toward your specific career goals, the more and more, the further and further along you get toward the position that you want, the further along that you get in your career field, the more sort of specific the conventions and the ideas are, right? So some fields might have individual tweaks that it would be in your best interest to learn about and look up and get a second opinion about. So I think the theme for today is sort of trust but verify, where my word is not the final word actually, and you should get a second opinion. All right, so but where does my word come from, or why should you listen to me a little bit? Resumes and cover letters are a little bit of a hobby of mine. It was my student work in college. I was a career advisor, so they trained us up to sort of be a peer career reviewer. Peer resume reviewer. And since then, I've tried to keep up with new information and the new trends. And I also have taught business writing for about 15 years. So as a part of that, I've tried to keep up as much as possible. Just on the screen, I'll also provide you with the link to the presentation in case your connection gets messed up, or in case my voice starts to make you insane and you, instead of screaming in agony, you might sign off and read by yourself later. That's fine. But here on the screen are just some, fairly decent suggestions for the second opinion. If you would want to follow up just by reading or looking around. You should also try to follow up with your career counselor. If you can identify your career counselor. And for Windward folks, it's Ha. And then when you go to your four-year school, the standard advice is, go to the career center at UH Manoa, UH West Oahu, wherever you end up transferring, or if you're already at UH West Oahu or UH Manoa, go to the career center in your third year. But a lot of people who are motivated will go as early as their second year. All right, but if sitting in the same room with someone, if the idea of that gives you hives, then you can go to Reddit, reddit.com/r/resume. It's actually a good resource. There are a surprising number of recent college grads, early people who are getting started after a career change, who openly share their resume and ask for feedback. I mean, they take their name off and stuff, but you can see lots of sample resumes. And then we're going to do some examples together today, but there are many more examples available on Reddit, which also has a step-by-step set of step-by-step guides. Microsoft Word has good resume templates for free that are already in there. You can go on Google and do a file type search. Okay, so if you can see where it says Google, if you just plug that exact search string in there, resume template, and then type the operator file type and put a colon and search for a doc or a PDF, you can get lots of, PDF won't be as helpful. You need a doc to use the template. And then there's also something called My Perfect Resume that is easy to use. It's relatively affordable. It's $3, but just be aware that after you fill in the forms and use their tool, they want to charge you $3. But I mean, that's not too bad. All right, so that's for your second opinion. I just want to start out with a quick waking up question. If you folks want to yell out or put into the chat what you think the purpose of your resume and cover letter, or your resume and cover message are, which is not, so I put the hint there, It's not to get the job, and it's not to make more money. It's not to cinch your career goal with a magical piece of paper. So if it's not that, what do you think the purpose, right? So the purpose, we can say that the purpose of a resume and the cover letter is smaller and more focused and a little bit more specific than getting a job, which you need to do other things to get the job, right? What is the smaller purpose of the resume? Anybody want to take a stab? They can shout it out or type it into the chat. Or I can call in someone. Let's see. Anyone typing? I'm going to call in Briani. Briani, can you say, just take a guess?
I think a resume is for the company to get to know the person better.
Yeah, right. So put your information out there to let the company get a feel for you. Fun. Any other guesses? Any typing going? Oh, to get an interview. All right. Oh, yeah, terrific. To highlight your skills and experience. Yes. Highlight your skills, experience, sort of put your best foot forward so the company can get a feel for you. And Scott knew what answer I was fishing for, which is to get an interview. Yeah. So, and then once you have the interview, then, right, that's the next thing you have to do is be ready and be able to, think through some of the questions they might ask you. But in order to get the interview, you need to be noticed. You need to sort of stand out above some of the other people applying. And one of the kind of slightly intimidating but apparently true things about what happens when someone is working through their stack of resumes to see who they want to interview is that whether it's someone sitting in their dark cave of an office and they're hungry and they never have lunch yet, or whether it's the annoying creepy computer, the average time someone spends looking at the resume is 7 seconds, which is super annoying because you slaved and you spent all your time making it beautiful and formatting it in the correct way. Okay, but they're not going to spend the same amount of time looking at it that you spent making it. Okay, so what you want is, right, the tricky thing that you need to achieve is to stand out, but not be too creative, right? So all the colors and the beautiful, well, who knows how much that helps, right? Stand out. Don't be too creative unless you're going to be like graphic design or something. Don't lie. Don't artificially inflate. And don't go on too long. Okay, so I've had friends who, I told you at the beginning, I've been, my hobby is looking at resumes and giving feedback. And so over the years, I've had friends ask me, and I say, hey, your resume is 10 pages long. That is too long. And they resist. But one of the other main themes of today is keep your resume to 1 page. Right. If you, we'll go on, but if you have been in a job for like 10 years and you're the president and now you're applying to be the emperor, then maybe you can have like 2 or 3 pages. But for everybody else, right, people who are coming out of their school program, people who are changing their position, which is the majority of cases for when you would need to use a resume anyway, that's a 1 page resume. If you're not the president applying to be emperor, then 1 page. Okay. All right. So sort of waking up question number 2, I'm going to give you a quiz in a second. There's actually a quiz. And it's just it's sort of a 1 question, but it's actually a 2 question quiz. So I'm going to show you 2 practice resumes, option 1 and option 2. The question where the quiz, the poll, the Zoom poll will appear is about which option is the after option, which option is the revision. Is it option 1 or option 2? And then after people have sort of a chance to answer, then I'll also ask you to think about what are some of the differences between the resumes that stand out to you. All right, so here's resume option 1. These are both real resumes that I stole off of Reddit. Off of that r/resume on Reddit, actually, because all kind of people are posting their resumes online and asking for feedback, and then showing the revision and asking for more feedback. So here's option one. It's in, you can see the nice colors, the columns, and then it starts out with their experience. The first experience is they're a team member. They used an iPad to take orders, handed food out to customers, and worked the drive-through. The second item, they were a dishwasher. They washed dishes. They performed trash and recycling, and they performed kitchen prep. And then the third position they had, they were snack bartendant. They looked over the cash register, cleaned the cooking area, and performed bartending duties. And then they have English tutoring, certificates, things like teamwork and employee training. And they even have their interests. They're listening to music. Okay, that's option one. I'll flash back to option one in a second, but let's look at option two. Okay, option two is a little bit more black and white. The formatting is in one column. And then they start out with this accomplishments section. So 7+ years in the restaurant business. They supported the manager at a previous location, which led to 15% increase in sales. They can use Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, and they can build websites. And then, so here are the same positions now. Position one, they utilized iPad directly sending orders to the kitchen and eliminated excess customer wait time. Position two, for the dishwashing, they practiced inventory management skills, resulting in a work environment that would have previously not met the guidelines for standard work zone. And position three, they performed bartending for the first time, which allowed growth, I'll move my head, development as a restaurant team member in a unique environment. Okay, this is option two. Here's option one again. I'm gonna open up the poll, and whenever you're ready, can you vote which one is the after or the revised version? Here's option one, and then here's option two. Okay. All right, terrific. Here's option one again. Here's option two. All right, anybody still voting? We have 8 voters. Okay, all right. That's close enough. Here's option one again. All right. Okay, so can everybody see the results of the poll now? Okay, so we had 2 people for option one and 6 for option two. Would anyone want to share a little bit about which option they thought was the after the revised option and why? Option one or option two? You can talk or put it in the chat. Talking is nice though.
Hi, I'm Marlene. I selected option two because for me, it was easier to look at and to bring out the main point of the person's resume versus option one. I just saw it all scattered, all, information all over the place. I thought this was more orderly.
Okay, all right, yeah. So the single column format, it's more traditional. It can look more orderly. Your eye knows where to go. One sort of interesting thing about the traditional format is actually also for a reader who's reading very quickly, it's easier, right? Just to go down the left-hand margin, but then it's also easier for the creepy computer, right? So there's lots of creepy computers who it's just going to go through and it gets scanned, and the computer is going to try to pick out the information. And, I'm sure the company that pays $1 jillion for the #1 best creepy computer, it can do the job fine no matter what. But for, just in case, right? What if the companies, they say they want to save a little on the creepy computer, right? So this sort of single column format is supposed to be better for the computer also. Fun. Okay, Andrea says option two describes in detail the soft skills and how they were learned. Yeah, so instead of just listing the skills, Here we have soft skills, teamwork, customer service. In option 2, it says pretty specifically, right? Oh, they worked on a team, but then they also were supporting the manager in a way that led to 15% increase in sales, right? That's a lot more information. You could support the manager and get in the way and the sales went down. I mean, not that you would ever say that on a resume, but they're saying it specifically. Here was the good result right there at the top, right? So that was pretty fun. Tasia says, I chose option 2 because they used a percentage to describe how they helped increase the sales. Yeah. And then when they, even when they don't have a number, they try to say a concrete result, right? They decreased customer wait time, or they helped the place where they were being a dishwasher. They helped them met safety guidelines for their work zone. Yeah, that's terrific. Okay, fun. Any other differences you noticed between option 1 and option 2? Those are some pretty good differences. I think one thing Scott said a minute ago was that option 1, it sort of says, it just sort of talks about, what they did, right? Or, sort of everyday items. So they took orders, they handed out food. Sometimes, and I see this, it can be a common approach where if it's your first or second resume, someone with an earlier version of a resume might feel as though the thing that goes on the resume, it only counts if I did it like 1,000,000 times. And it was every day. And where as you get more experience with writing a resume, you feel more comfortable putting on things that maybe it only happened once or twice, but it was a big deal. It was like the big project, right? If you did a big project, but it only happened one time, that doesn't mean that you didn't do it, right? You did it. So include sort of projects and big things that didn't happen every day, and then try to do highlights and show what your accomplishment was as much as possible. Okay, fun times. Here are, let's see, did we get all of these? Oh, okay. So we said it had a simplified format. We said that it highlighted the skills. We said that it was focusing on what happened, what the outcome was. And then the fourth thing that I'm glad I put on the cheat sheet here is that it put the education section in. And so the 3 main sections in your resume is your experience, your skills, and your education. Your experience, your skills, and your education. There are other sections that can be in addition to those 3, but try to have those 3. And especially since we're on this Zoom, we're all here in an educational setting, so you should definitely have education on there. Okay, so there's no quiz for this one, but and we can just take a look together. And I'm gonna, instead of making you scrutinize only the screen as I am flip back and forth, I'll give you the link. So here's the before. And let's see if I can. Here is the after. All right, so just slowly, we can go through gradually. Before, so this one starts out with a summary. Bachelor of Engineering and Chemical Engineering, strong communication skills. So that seems fine. Here's education section. They have a relevant project. And then here's some work experience. So application, engineering intern, quick service supervisor handling cash. They were engineering orientation representative. They were an engineering club person. And then here are skills and other extracurricular activities. All right, so can anyone think of one huge drawback of this resume? It seems okay, right? In terms of what's there. One huge drawback is it's 2 pages. All right, so let's see magically how they did a 1-page version. All right, so here it is fitting on 1 page. They still have this summary of qualifications, the accomplishments, right? So that's good. A second thing that they do, or well, one of the main things that they do, right, is that it features unpaid relevant experience, overpaid irrelevant experience. Okay, it features the unpaid experience over the paid experience that was less relevant. So you can see on this resume, it has the engineering intern, and then it has the education, but then it keeps the extracurricular, right? So it kept the engineering orientation, and it kept the upper year representative, right? Those were volunteer things. Okay. Whereas before they had this, see at the top, they have this paid job where they're handling cash. And they have, let's see, was there another paid job? Okay, they took out this handling cash job. Well, they made the spacing a little bit smaller. Right, but and then they also, you know, they focus in on a few more specific outcomes and actions, right? So they're responsible for design calculations resulting in 5 to 10 more stations processed per day. Another nice thing, so, you know, in terms of putting their best foot forward, they also, at the very top, they said chemical engineering graduate, elected valedictorian, right? If you go back to option before, where's the valedictorian in that one? I don't know, but that's a good thing to mention, right? So put all the good stuff as soon as possible. You can pick and choose. You don't have to put every single thing you ever did. And then sometimes when you are trying to keep it to 1 page, there are certain kind of choices you have to make. Sacrifice the paid job where you're handling cash, right? If you're applying to be an engineer or for another engineering internship, maybe handling cash is not as related as doing engineering things. Fun. Anybody? So that I've been blabbing a lot. Any questions about anything so far? Going good. Okay. All right. Put your question in the chat or say stop. I have a question. Whenever you want. Okay. And then just to bring back the after version from that first resume. Right. So started with accomplishments and skills. It has unpaid relevant experience, overpaid relevant experience, fits in 1 page, and has the specific actions and the outcomes. This is a pretty good food service resume. I think it's a nice example. Okay, and then so for this one, if you can remember back, they also had like tutoring experience. And so if you look, it's even though it doesn't say right, so some old-timey resumes used to say, I am looking for a position in food service, right? So they're not saying that on the resume, but you can sort of tell, right? They took out the tutoring stuff. If they had the tutoring stuff in, you might expect, well, maybe they would have taken some of the food service out. Okay, so you can have different versions of your resume depending on what sort of position you're going for, especially if you have, you know, like, you know, if you aren't settled in your final career yet, a lot of us at some point in our life have these areas of work, right? We have a retail set of experiences and then our, you know, volunteering experience at the vet tech clinic, and those aren't necessarily related. So if you're doing vet tech things, you want the vet tech stuff, but then if you're kind of, you know, bridging the gap between now and when you're a veterinarian with retail work, then you want your retail resume to maybe have more of the retail stuff, if that makes sense. Okay, so putting your own resume together, here are the things that you want to start having. Just at the top, have all your information, right? And don't leave off stuff that shouldn't be left off. So have your phone, have where you're located. People are interested in that. If you have a LinkedIn, I'm going to blab more about LinkedIn, but try to have a LinkedIn. If you have relevant, you know, website, social media stuff, don't put your age. or there are things about your personal life they don't have to know. And don't have a crazy email. And don't put your photo unless, oddly, in some countries it's okay, right? Like, so in Scandinavia, they like the photo, and in Asia, they like the photo, but in the United States and North America, whatever, I don't know if you're applying for jobs in Canada, but don't put your photo. All right. Okay, and then have that highlights section. And I have a before and after. Mine is the before, and it's a little bit vague and short. And so I made mine my LinkedIn summary a while back when people were starting to do summaries more regularly, and I had no intention of applying for. I've been in this job a long time. I don't think I'm going to get a new job anytime soon. So I just did one for just for fun to see. This person on the right, where my fat head is blocking it, they are definitely trying to get a job, right? So they have all the things: their experience, their skills, and their accomplishments and goals. So what you want at the very top of the resume: how much experience do you have? What your successes and awards are. You can have as many. I mean, if you look back at this guy's one, that's a lot of things, right? So as many successes or awards as you think will be persuasive. And then skills, right? So technical kind of hard skills that are measurable, right? You are able to use this program, you were able to do this accounting process, you're able to stab someone in the arm with a needle and give them a shot or whatever, right? So measurable skills, but then also what people call soft skills, which are the skills that are harder to measure, like you can work with others, you take initiative, you have leadership experience, you are flexible, adaptable, those kinds of things. All right. And then I put a little highlight here. You'll notice in the sample, some people just have the paragraph and some people have bullets. I think either, whatever kind of suits your style best is fine. All right, so that's the highlights and the skills. Okay, and then for many of us, education comes next. And then especially for, since we're all in a college setting, that generally means that your trajectory, your direction toward whatever your career goals are, sort of go through your education experience, right? So whatever shows your path the best is what comes next. That's still following from this idea that you want to put your best foot forward, show your best qualities first. So for most people who are in college or who are recent graduates, we put education next after the summary accomplishments highlight, because that, most often the thing that you were studying is the thing that you are that is helping you go in the direction you want, right? Eventually you're going to switch and put experience first, right? After you get your first, second, third job, the thing that is the most relevant to what you want to do next is what you did on your previous job, most often, right? Especially if you're continuing on in the career field. And then throughout your life, you might move these sections up and down, right? So if you decide, oh, I really want a complete career change, then you go back to school, then that might call for you to put education first again, right, later on. So these things aren't like permanent in terms of where they are in your resume. Sometimes one will be first and sometimes the other will come first. Education versus experience. What do you what do you put in your education? You put the school, right? You put your degree and put your GPA if it's high or if you like it. And then you have the option, as in the previous examples, right? You can describe like projects or courses you were in, things that you volunteered in an extracurricular setting, whatever is the most relevant in your education experience. And this is especially helpful if you don't have a whole ton of related experience when you're applying for the thing you're applying for. You can fit it in under education, or you could even make a separate section called, a related project, right? Or a related volunteer experience, like that engineering guys or girls, their sample resume, they had all their engineering experience. Some of it was paid, some of it was volunteer, some of it was extracurricular. Okay. Any questions? So much blabbing. No? Right. Okay, so in terms of your work, this is going to be probably over time the main section. And so what do you put in here? As we've sort of discussed by going over the examples, the first thing is to try to focus as much as possible on how you were improving things, what happened at the end, or what happened as the intermediate goal. What did you achieve? Number two, you can start each sentence with an action verb. And Scott has very helpfully created, I'm going to put the action verbs list in the chat. Okay, so that's a fun document that you can, if you Google action verbs, there's 10 million action verbs, but Scott created that nice document for us to use. And so, one thing you might notice about the samples also is that resume writing style is kind of janky and not grammatical. So you don't say I did this or they did that. It just starts with the verb as the first word, and every one is a sentence fragment. But you want to use some action verbs, and then include details that show how you did it, and again, what the outcomes were, right? So you swept the floor 3 times faster, or you used 2 brooms at once to sweep faster, which is, kind of vague, and not that it's just a silly, it's like me making a joke, or well, actually people on Reddit making a joke. So what's an actual good recommendation that's more concrete that will get you where you want is to do the LinkedIn. Okay? And so LinkedIn is not primarily useful for being like nerdy Snapchat or whatever. LinkedIn is useful for having access to a huge range of people describing what they do at their job. LinkedIn is useful for having access to a huge range of people describing what they do on their job. It's basically they're, sharing a longer and less kind of focused version of their resume. And so what you need to do is you need to make a join request, or I forget what it's called. Make a friend with someone, with your professor, with your counselor, with your nerdy uncle, whoever, who has a bunch of LinkedIn contacts. You just need one of those people. And then once you have a connection with, if you only connect to other people who only have one connection, it's not helpful. So you need to connect with someone who has a whole ton of connections. And then once you have that one connection, if you want to add me, that's fine. I'll put you, I'll be your friend. Once you know one of those people, then you have second degree, third degree. You can click third degree connection to everybody that they are connected to. So you can see results from all kinds of different career fields, right? So on the screen is radiology. Do I know a radiologist? No, I'm not a friend with any radiologist, but if you have a friend who is, then you automatically get to see what's on their profile. And you'd really be surprised when all you need is 1 or 2 people who have all these contacts, and then pretty much any career field is available. I have an example on a future slide, and a slide coming up that shows radio announcer. That like Lena Girl was my student way back in the day. So that's actually a first degree. Okay, but that's the general idea. And then seeing their LinkedIn writing helps you think about, how could I describe, without like copying what they said. You can also just see how did they write up their experience, what did they focus on. It's really helpful. Okay, what are some other sections? If you speak other languages or especially can read and write fluently, that can be a real advantage. So I would put that. If you have a specific certification, some job fields, they want you to have a specific certificate, you can put that. If you got awards for things, scholarship, or you got a employee of the month, put that. And then just as we discussed earlier, if you have a project, especially if it was a school project, or if you have an experience, especially if it was a school experience, extracurricular or volunteer experience, you can write those up in the same way you write up a paid experience, as long as you label it accurately, right? So don't say I was, well, I mean, it's some of these, the position description clearly makes it clear, it makes it clear that it was volunteer if you're president of the student council and people know what that is, right? But if you were, well, let's say you can use my example, right? If I said career advisor and I didn't clearly label it, I called myself a career advisor and made it seem as though that was a paid job. That's not so good, right? So as long as I labeled it accurately, and well, actually no, that was a paid job, but it was student work, right? So as long as I didn't represent it as a full-time job that I was doing, right? But I was clear about this was my student job, and it was it was in that sort of work study setting. Then you can write up the position in the same way that you would write up regular paid position. All right. And then you can also have interests on there that you think are relevant. Okay. All right. Here are some most intense steps to take if you are going after your dream job, your dream position, or you're trying to make your way in your dream career. And the first is to use the creepy computer to your advantage. So you can, actually, I should have put Grammarly on this too. So I've been hearing more and more about how good Grammarly is. So if you have to download it and put it in your computer, I think, but you can try out Grammarly. This word tune thing, you can put in your sample sentence and then get alternate versions and see how that, see whether that helps. So try out word tune if you like. Okay, other sort of real intense suggestions is to go and get a bunch of job ads and look at what they say in the job ad, and then use that to fine tune your resume. Okay, so you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on, some of the standard is Indeed for Hawaii jobs, HireNet, Hawaii. You can, and then, even better, if you know specifically where you want to work, go to their website and then look at the specific jobs that they're listing. And then you can do that by going to their website. So let's say you're like, oh, I want to work in a hospital setting in Hawaii. Then you would go to Queens, Kapiolani, Straub, Castle, look at all the hospitals, and then do a little search on their homepage or the little search bar and search for jobs, careers, opportunities, work for us. You'll start to get the sense for what to click on to find their job list. And then keep a nerdy running list of the experiences and the skills and the qualifications the people there are looking for. Okay, and then once you have that list, then you can use the keywords and phrases in your resume. Okay, and then the most super intense version of this is that if you are applying to the job of your dreams and everyone's dreams of a lifetime, then you can change the resume for that one specific job, right? So in other words, if you're just doing it for a specific, for a field or a kind of job, then, you can look at some ads, get some of the descriptions together, have a list, say, oh, they tend to, all these hospitals tend to use the phrase patient care, or, that's a bad example. They tend to use the phrase whatever, and then you start using that in your resume. The more intense version of that is to put in the phrases and the words from the one job ad, right? So you're like, this is my one job that I want to get over all the other ones. And you, instead of just using patient care, let's say Straub says ultra patient care. The examples are getting worse and worse. Then you're going to go in and put ultra all over the place because Straub said ultra, if that makes sense. Okay, but that's only, I don't do that all the time, right? That's always going to be super time consuming. But if it's, right, if you are trying your hardest for the job you want the most, then that's something to try. Okay. How do you sort of send your resume out into the world? You have to stick a cover letter on top of it. So I'm going to blab just really quickly about cover letters and then see if anybody has questions. Does anybody have a burning question? Okay, stop me if you have a question. But cover letters, you need to send a cover letter on top of your resume. Don't just send the resume by itself. So what is in this picture is the generic format of a cover letter. You have your contact information. You say something about how you heard about the job. You mention your uncle or your auntie or your cousin if they recommended you, your former boss. Okay, if someone recommended you for the job, don't be all shy and assume that the person on the other end is going to just know. You have to say is like right at the top, my auntie so-and-so told me to apply for this job. Right, if you get pulled over after you are okay, well, now I have to say it exactly. If the police pull you over and you say, right, and your uncle, you're like, oh, my uncle so-and-so is going to be so disappointed in me to get out of the ticket. You don't wait until the end to say that, right? You say that as the first thing. So if your mom is recommending you for this job, don't be shy, just say it at the beginning. Okay, second paragraph is you have specific examples about your skills and how they match what the employer wants, kind of generally. And then you thank them for hopefully interviewing you, right? That's the generic format. I'm going to talk a little bit more now about the most intense version. And the reason why you want to be more intense, especially if it's a job you really want, is that the person who is kind of reviewing your resume has a very annoying chart that looks like this. Okay, and they're trying to rate every single person who applied on a scale of 0 to 2. Let's say that's what the scale is in this example. And then they're going to make a spreadsheet like this that's color coded. And what they're doing is, do you see the descriptions in the left column? That's what is in the job ad. And if I am evaluating your application for a job, I want to go down the list in the order in which it was listed in the ad and evaluate everyone in the same order. And if I have to pore through all your stuff to figure out what number to give you, I will become increasingly irritated at you. Even though, I mean, I have way above average patience and niceness. Yeah, because I am a teacher first, and I don't go on job committees as my main job. Right? Just imagine if this person, that's their only job, is to fill in this chart. They're going to be super annoyed right away. All right, so what you want to do is in a job ad, you look for the qualifications. Okay, you look for the qualifications. So here's a mnemonic in a job ad. You look for this word qualifications, and that's what you talk about in your cover letter. Okay, job ads also describe responsibilities, and the mnemonic for that is responsibilities go in your resume. Okay, and you only typically can put something in your resume after you did it. Right, so if you're applying for a job and you didn't do the job yet, right, then maybe, you know, the best use of your time is to focus on what they want to hear about, the qualifications for the job, right? Especially if you're applying for, you know, a job where there's only a few of them, for example, being a radio host, they're bound to have candidates who haven't been a radio host yet, right? Maybe they were, you know, they worked on the side as a radio reporter, but they weren't the host. Or maybe they were a newspaper reporter, but they weren't a radio host. So in order to judge the candidates fairly, they are going to go off of the qualifications list primarily. And it's much more reasonable to think, I'm going to have responsibilities for these, for if I get the job, I'm going to use the responsibilities I did on the job to fill in my resume after. Okay. Before you get the job, especially if it's a state job or federal job, they are looking at the qualifications, and they want you to talk about the qualifications, right? So do you have a bachelor's degree? Did you put in video samples? Are you energetic? Okay. Did you organize and plan a show calendar and book guests and schedule segments? Maybe not, right? Because you weren't a radio host yet. So that's just a little pet peeve. Wow, this is a topic I like to talk about, clearly. But okay, and then what you're going to do is you put your cover letter together in the same order as the qualifications are listed, right? And so what that does is it allows the annoying someone like me, overly intense person to fill in the chart more easily. Okay. Answer the qualifications sort of in order. All right. That was the last slide of Blab. Anybody want to talk about or to go back to a specific slide or to ask a question about anything resume or cover letter related?
I had a question, Lance.
Yeah.
So on one of the slides you mentioned there is certain information you don't want to include on your resume. Can you explain why?
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's have a whiplash. Okay. So there are protected employment categories where employers are not allowed to discriminate, right? So I'm glad you asked that question, because I wrote down the protected categories. Okay, the protected categories are race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, marital status, political affiliation. Are those that? Well, that's what I copied and pasted from some .gov site. So what, you don't have to, they can't ask, right, how old you are. And they can't ask, are you married? So why, no need volunteer that if they can't ask you, if that's the thing that you're protected from telling, right? They can't ask, what religion are you? And the reason is that if they were asking, then people would worry about, are they making hiring decisions based on whether you are or you are not a certain religion, whether you are above or below a certain age. The fair thing that they can evaluate you on is, do you have experience? Do you have the skills that are related to this? If there are physical requirements, they have to list them. And then, can you do the physical requirements, right? They can't say, do you have a disability? And so, that's why you don't volunteer. And then the photo is actually the same. Photo is the same, right? They can't discriminate on color and race. And so, if they were asking for a photo, people would worry, oh, do they want to see what you look like before they hire you? Or before they call you in for an interview? And there have actually been studies where that's, whether that's conscious or unconscious, people who have a name that sounds one way will get interviewed more frequently than people whose name sounds different, right? Sounds another way. So the more you can do to put the focus on your skills and your experience and your enthusiasm, the things they can actually evaluate you on, the better. Yeah, that's a fun question.
So Lance, can you